Hello chess family, it's me, National Master Jesse James, and today we're going over a very fun game I got to play in the black side of an English. The English is definitely a very hard opening because it stops a lot of players that like to attack from attacking. And so this game you're going to be seeing me, I do love to attack. Unfortunately in this one it's really hard to get those attacking chances. And in this one it's a symmetrical English, meaning everything's about the same here. So you're just going to see a very good game with, well, strategy, just outplaying your opponent nice and neat. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and get to it. We start off with knight f3, knight to f6, a very common way that a lot of English players will start the game. Here, g3, g6. When they do this, I basically just go ahead and copy them. I'm a fianchetto player myself. Bishop g2, bishop g7, castles, castles. And here, white must tell us what opening they are now playing. There's definitely plenty of options around here. You could go d4, you can go c4. Those are, I would say, probably around the major choices here. Even d3 and c3 are moves here too. But for the most part, when you're playing these people, most likely they're going to be playing pawn to d4 here. And, d4 here is a good move. And here I like to play pawn to c5. This is going to be a transposition, meaning it's going to turn into a symmetrical English. And here my opponent already knew this line, and they went ahead and played pawn to c4. And this is now transposed into the symmetrical English, meaning c4, c5, and typically they play pawn to d4, which is a good move. The idea is that, well, they'd like me to take, so they can take knight takes, and this opens up the bishop. Makes sense to me. Here I've been studying this line for many years, and, well, I like this. I like open positions just in general. If you do not take, then you're going to have to deal with ideas like them playing pawn to d5 in the future, grabbing extra space and keeping the position closed. And I will say those positions I just do not like as much. So here, I'm very happy. Let's go ahead and take. Here the knight takes back. I play knight to c6 here. Typically when you have less space, like I do, because the c4 pawn is controlling more, it's kind of hard to push your pawns forward to d5 unless you want to trade off, which I don't want that particularly. Typically when you have less space, you want to make some trades here. It's going to help alleviate or make your position easier to play because your pieces are all on top of each other. And, knight c3 gets played. And again, like I said, a little bit of trade's good for me, so I go ahead and play knight takes, queen takes. And this sets up ideas about, well, maybe I'll have some good discoveries here, moving my knight so the bishop can attack the queen. And here most people will go ahead and just move the queen here. Right now there is no good discovery, so I just go ahead and play simple chess. Pawn to d6. This simply lets my bishop out. And here, queen to d2 gets played. A weird looking move for some because, well, it looks like it blocks the bishop. And this one, it's actually not that weird because white's idea here is to play pawn b3 and put the bishop on the long diagonal. This is a pure game of strategy here, which we'll go over the basic ideas for white very soon. I will say from this position, black must come up with an idea. Going kingside attack is not really a good one. Attacking fianchettos is very hard. Going center, where you can see I lost the center here. I don't want to play e5. This gives me a backwards pawn. Achieving d5 will be very difficult, which only leaves the queen side. You might be asking, well, how do you develop any kind of counterplay on the queen side? Here I figured out a nice idea. The idea I try to do is trying to achieve b5. Which means I want to play something like a6 and b5. Now, obviously, this is going to take a bit of preparation, but that's basically the idea. Whenever I do this, most likely they'll take, and it'll be one pawn versus two. And then after that, I try and trade off another pawn, meaning I leave them with an isolated pawn most of the time, and then that can be my target for the rest of the game. And, well, it's a very good strategy because not only whenever you do this do you give them an isolated pawn, but now I get a good majority in the center here. This becomes a candidate pass pawn. So let's get to it. Let's achieve this b5 idea. Here I went ahead and played a6. White plays b3. Again, white's going to go ahead and play bishop b2. A lot of times what white does is, well, they have extra space here, so they just try to claim as much space as possible, and they play very simple chess moves. They won't play anything crazy here. They're going to wait for you to make a mistake. That's why it's so important that you come up with a plan fast. A lot of people kind of get to the middle game and don't know what they're doing and just kind of wait around. Terrible. If you play against a skilled opponent, they're going to grab the extra space and just start pushing you off the board. Not with me. So here I want to achieve b5, so we simply go rook b8, a good move. This moves off the diagonal for the bishop, which I already like already. Here bishop b2 gets played, and here, well, I can go ahead and just play my move, pawn to b5. Again, I'm very happy with this position. And here, I am not out of my theory yet, my own personal theory that I play this so much. They go ahead and take most of the time. Pawn takes back, of course. And here, knight to d5. They want to go ahead and trade off here. And there really is nothing good for me to do. I guess if I really didn't want this to happen, or I try to do a better exchange, I can go ahead and play something like bishop to e6 in some of these lines, instead of playing b5 right away. From my experience, it's been best to play b5 right away, because sometimes white will play pawn a4, trying to discourage this from happening. So, b5, pawn takes, knight d5. Like I said, there's really nothing you can really do here. Some exchanges will get made. And like I said, because we have less space, the more trades, the better. And just for those who are wondering, you don't want to just develop a piece like bishop b6. Here, white gets a very good position after simple. Knight takes on f6 check. And either way, you're going to be getting an isolated pawn here and some double pawns. If you play pawn takes back, white gets a very good game with rook over to d1, putting pressure on the d pawn. The pawn will probably fall at some point. And the same thing happens if you play bishop takes. They'll simply just trade, and rook over to d1. And again, you get into this very bad position. So that's why you just got to accept it. You go ahead and play knight takes. And they never miss the opportunity. They go ahead and play bishop takes first, king takes, and then queen takes. This position may not look good to some, and I will say at first I was not very happy with it, but after playing this extensively, I learned that this is actually an equal position. In fact, I actually really like my position because I'm about to put them in a bind or in a position that's hard for them to make progress. And it's, again, all about the queenside attack. Here I continue with developing with the threat. Bishop to e6. And here my opponent played queen to d2. Not a bad idea. Typically, most people go queen to d4 here check. Not that it's like, winning the game or anything. It's just a move that they play to get back on tempo. The king goes back to g8. And one of the moves that we're trying to achieve here as black is play pawn to b4. White's idea is typically trying to go a4 here. Maybe try and push a past pawn, which is something we want. Remember, they're going to be creating an isolated pawn. Or they're going to go ahead and just play the rook over to c1 and take the open file. Either one I'm very happy with, which is, again, very, very standard for these kind of positions. But my opponent played queen to d2, again, not losing by any means, just not the best. And here I get to play that nice move, pawn to b4. A very nice move, as this is going to make this a backwards pawn. It's not so simple for them to push the pawns forward now. For instance, pawn to a4, I can simply en passant, or you can even play bishop takes b3. Two very good moves here. This pawn move is very strong. This one pawn is holding back these two. All right, white's turn. White went ahead and played that idea, rook over to c1. And here, I want to get my rook over to the c file. You definitely don't want white to double up the rooks here and then, well, just go ahead and take the file by themselves. So I play this move of queen to a5. And this is a tricky looking move here because although it looks like queen a5 is just developing and putting pressure on the a-pawn, white does have an interesting idea. They go ahead and play pawn to a4. Now, this is definitely a very interesting move to play here because, well, whenever this happens, the b3 pawn becomes weak. I mean, you can literally just take it now, although taking it right now can definitely get you into a tough position because the rook will probably get to the c file at some point. Rook to b1 can get played. Things get a bit messy. So we're not going to take the pawn just yet, but because the b3 pawn is what we call a static weakness. It's a weakness that's going to be there for the rest of the game, so there's really no rush to take it, especially if you don't want your opponent to get counterplay. I don't want my opponent to get counterplay. I want to stop it all before it happens. So here I went ahead and played rook b to c8. Here the computer does not like this move as much, but it makes sense to me. Here it likes the rook f to c8, which either way, as long as you get a rook to c8, you're doing well. Main idea being, of course, you want to go ahead and put a rook on the open file here. So, back to the game. Oh, I will point out here, after a4, you can't play b takes on a3 here, as this would just be a blunder because of the pin. This was white's idea. This is why they played a4. They're trying to give themselves a pass pawn here, and they do give themselves a pass pawn, but it turns out that this is just not going to work because of the weaknesses. So again, rook b to c8. I think my rook's not going to do much over here. Rook takes, and here a very standard bad move that will get played. Rook over to c1. And this makes sense. This is one of those moves that if you can't have the file, then no one can have the file. So rook c1 gets played. But it turns out I have a very nice strategic move here to take the advantage. All right, it's black to move. What do you play in this position? All right, guys, if you haven't already, go ahead and give us that like and subscribe. Remember, liking this video is going to share this with more chess players. All right, so rook c1 got played Again, this is not tactics. This is not crazy chess. This is just a good strategic move to gain space and get an advantage. What do you play here? Here you have the very nice move of rook to c3. At this point, it's a -2. Nothing really crazy happened this game. A few little inaccuracies, right? But no blunders or big bad moves, right? So why is this rook c3 such a strong move? Well, one of the ideas is it's putting pressure on the pawn. The other idea is, well, if they take, which actually does happen in the game, they're going to give me a passed pawn, so that's always great. And the other one is, if they don't take, then I can bring my queen over to c5 and then take the file by force. So this is just a good move. If there's only one open file, like there is in this game, you should want to control it. It's the only way in and out of the position. And yeah, b3 was going to fall here, so my opponent just went ahead and played rook takes. Again, a move I'm very happy to see. Pawn takes, queen over to c2. Again, they're more than welcome to play things like queen to d4 check. Here I would just play pawn to f6 most likely here. And yeah, pawn's very weak. My pawn's about to push forward. You can see that this bishop, although looking good, is just not doing good. Yeah, a very, very bad position here for white here. In the game, like I said, they went ahead and played queen c2, and it doesn't take too much of a genius to figure out the plan here. We're going to try to get this pawn across the board and focus on the weaknesses on b3. So, let's keep pushing forward. Queen b4, now threatening to take on b3. Again, not only winning the pawn, but trying to control the squares in front of it. We need to control c2 and c1 so we can make a little baby girl over here a new queen. Pawn to a5, trying to distract me. You're more than welcome to take the pawn on a5. There really is no kind of rush in this position. But here, I like to stay as accurate as possible, try to win as fast as possible. Bishop takes on b3, attacking the queen, winning a pawn, and again, looking to push the pawn forward. White just has no good moves here. The queen went to b1 for a little pin. That's okay. Pawn to c2, pushing forward. And here, white went ahead and played queen b2 check. I mean, they could play check here or play the queen over to c1. Only one square left at this point. Yeah, here I went ahead and just played e5. There's no need not to. I mean, my pawns get pushed up a little bit forward. They can't push the pawn right now due to tactical purposes. Here they played bishop b4. An idea that, well, it just doesn't work out. I mean, nothing's really working out at this point. But yeah, it's just black to move and win here. There's actually like 3-4 good moves that you could play here. Notice that the idea here was that if the queen takes the bishop, then they could take our bishop. What they forgot was, or missed, is that we could just make our new queen. The queen is bound down to this. You can also just play queen e1 check and then make a new queen. You can also play queen takes on a5. I mean, again, this is just a dominant position because we've got all our pieces on the right squares. Like I said, this is a plan I've been working on, and I'm very used to playing against these English players. Well, guys, hope you enjoyed this. This was strategy playing the Symmetrical English as black against a regular English with pawn to c4. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you in the next video.